How someone can break your heart, tear your soul apart, and then walk away like nothing ever happened. Like they never said those cruel words, never played those mind games, never watched you cry and still kept going. That's not forgetfulness. That's calculated. Narcissists don't feel guilt the way you do, and that's exactly what makes them dangerous. In this video, we're pulling back the mask to expose why narcissists never apologize, why they pretend nothing happened, and why your pain doesn't even register in their twisted reality. But there's a twist. If you're the chosen one, something deeper is happening beneath the pain. You didn't just survive their betrayal. You awakened because of it. Stick with me till the end, because once you understand what's really going on, you'll never fall for their game again. And hey, if something in this speaks to your soul, don't just scroll away. Hit subscribe, drop a comment, and let's break the silence together. You're not alone, and you were never crazy. You were chosen. The illusion of innocence is the narcissist's favorite disguise. They can cause deep emotional damage, say things that cut to your core, lie without blinking, twist your reality, and still walk away with a straight face, acting like nothing ever happened. This isn't forgetfulness. It's not carelessness. It's strategy. Narcissists master the art of appearing calm and collected after creating emotional chaos, because it keeps them in control. It leaves you second-guessing yourself. They hurt you, but somehow you're the one apologizing. They pushed you to the edge, but now you're wondering if you overreacted. That's the game, emotional confusion. They don't want you to have clarity, because clarity leads to freedom, and freedom means they lose their grip on you. Guilt, for a narcissist, is something they've trained themselves not to feel. Guilt would require them to reflect, to admit they were wrong, to feel the pain they caused someone else. But instead of guilt, they choose delusion. They tell themselves you deserved it. You were too sensitive. You misunderstood. It's easier to shift the blame than carry the weight of accountability. And when a narcissist feels the weight getting too heavy, they just dump it onto you. That's why they leave you with the guilt, the shame, the maybe I'm the problem thoughts. They don't apologize because saying sorry would mean cracking the perfect image they show the world, an image of charm, confidence, and superiority. Narcissists live in a world where image is everything. They need people to believe they are kind, intelligent, even spiritual. So they act nice in public, smile at strangers, play the victim when needed. But behind closed doors, it's a different story. When they hurt you, and then act like everything's fine, they are trying to rewrite the story. Not just for others, for themselves too. If they can pretend it never happened, then maybe it didn't. That's the mind trick. You're left feeling broken, but they keep moving like nothing's changed. And this illusion is dangerous, because if you don't understand it, you start believing it's your fault. That's the power of a narcissist's silence. No apology, no conversation, just a blank space where your healing should have started. But here's what they don't expect: your awakening. Narcissists never think the person they break will rise from it. They never expect that their silence, their lack of guilt, their coldness, will actually trigger your clarity. You start noticing patterns. You realize this isn't love, it's control. You begin to detach emotionally, even spiritually. And when that moment comes, when you stop blaming yourself and start seeing the truth, they lose access to your energy. That's when their illusion starts to crack, because the narcissist feeds off your confusion, your guilt, your constant need to fix things. But once you see clearly, they can't unmask you with their lies anymore. You were never the weak one. You were simply too kind, too loyal, too forgiving. But forgiveness without accountability is self-abandonment. Narcissists exploit this. They'll pretend to care, say just enough to pull you back in, only to repeat the cycle. But once you wake up to their tactics, you no longer seek their apology. You no longer need them to admit what they did. Why? Because you've realized something powerful. They know what they did. They just don't care the way you care. And that's not your fault. It's their limitation. It's how they survive emotionally. You, on the other hand, feel deeply. You love honestly. You reflect. You grow. You apologize when you're wrong. That's not weakness. That's emotional maturity. Narcissists may wear the mask of strength, but true strength lies in humility, in facing your flaws, in saying I hurt you, and I'm sorry. They can't do that. Not because they're incapable of words, but because they are terrified of being exposed. Apologizing makes them vulnerable, and vulnerability threatens their illusion of superiority. So they bury guilt under denial. And when you confront them, they flip it. Suddenly you're the aggressor. You're too emotional. You're always starting drama. This tactic keeps them safe and keeps you spinning. But your soul knows the truth. That uneasiness you feel. It's your spirit rejecting manipulation. It's your higher self waking up. And that's why you're here now, searching for clarity, healing, meaning. The chosen ones often attract narcissists, not because they are weak, but because they carry a light the narcissist secretly envies. Your compassion, your intuition, your depth, it threatens their shallow world. So they try to dim you, break you, confuse you. But here's what they never saw coming. Your rebirth. Every betrayal became a lesson. Every silence, a space for reflection. Every tear, a cleansing of illusion. And now, you see the game clearly. You've outgrown the need for closure from someone who was never truly open. You've stopped chasing apologies from someone who can't even face themselves. You're not waiting anymore. You're rising. Not because they apologized, because you realized they never would. And that truth, as painful as it is, became your power. They act like nothing happened. But you remember everything. Not to stay bitter, but to never forget who you are and what you deserve. That memory is your protection. That awareness is your shield. And from this moment on, you no longer question your worth because of someone else's inability to love. The illusion of innocence is strong, but your clarity is stronger. Guilt is something that comes naturally to people with empathy. When you hurt someone, even unintentionally, your heart aches a little. You reflect. You feel the weight of what you did. You want to make it right. That's because empathy connects you to another person's experience. You can feel their pain even if you didn't cause it. Now imagine someone who doesn't have that connection. Someone who doesn't feel for others. Who only sees people as tools, mirrors, or obstacles. That's the mind of a narcissist. They don't just lack empathy. They twist yours into a weapon. While you're busy caring, overthinking, trying not to hurt anyone, they are using your kindness as leverage. When you cry, they feel powerful. When you forgive them, they take it as permission to do it again. And when you explain how you feel, hoping to connect with them on a human level, they analyze your words, not to understand, but to find your emotional weak spots. You can't feel real guilt without empathy. And that's why narcissists never truly apologize. Any sorry they offer is just a tactic, a tool to keep you close, not an act of remorse. Because true remorse requires the ability to step into your shoes, feel your pain, and take responsibility. Narcissists don't want to feel what you feel. They want to control what you feel. That's the difference. And once you start seeing it clearly, everything changes. You stop expecting real compassion from someone who doesn't even understand the language of empathy. You stop waiting for emotional connection from someone who's emotionally disconnected by choice. They are not confused. They are not broken in the way you think. They've chosen survival through superiority. They see empathy as weakness, because they've never experienced the strength it truly takes to love, to own up, to change. And here's the painful truth. They saw your empathy the moment they met you. They knew you would try to understand them, that you would forgive, that you would give them chance after chance. They didn't miss it. They targeted it. Your empathy made you a safe place for their damage. But the moment you start to value that empathy, not as a flaw, but as your sacred gift, you stop letting them use it against you. You see the game. You protect your peace. You don't harden, but you get wise. Narcissists lack guilt because they lack empathy. And they lack empathy because they fear what it would force them to see. But you feel deeply. And that's not your weakness, it's your power. The fact that you care, that you reflect, that you grow, that makes you the strongest soul. Always. What happened to you wasn't just unfortunate. It was intentional. Breaking you was never a byproduct of stress, misunderstanding, or a bad day. It was part of the narcissist's silent plan from the start. It always begins with charm, doesn't it? They study you, mirror you, say all the right things. They admire your light, your kindness, your strength, but not because they respect it, because they want to own it. Narcissists don't enter your life by chance. They are drawn to empathic, open-hearted souls like magnets. And once they know you care, they slowly begin the process of control. It starts small, little jabs, subtle guilt, shifting blame. But with each step, they chip away at your sense of self. Your confidence dims. Your voice softens. Your boundaries blur. And just when you start to question yourself, they pull back, act sweet, and convince you it's all in your head. That cycle is not a mistake. It's manipulation. It's how they feed their fragile ego. By breaking you down, they feel lifted up. Your confusion fuels their control. Your silence becomes their victory. And when they finally walk away, or discard you like you never mattered, it's because they believe they've extracted everything they could. That's the cruelest part. The exit isn't emotional. It's transactional. They weren't in it to love you. They were in it to use you, to study you, to feed off your energy until they felt powerful again. And then they vanish, without closure, without remorse. Not because they forgot you, but because they finished using you. That realization can shatter you, but it can also wake you up. Because once you accept that it wasn't random, you stop making excuses for their behavior. You stop trying to find the moment when things changed. Because now you understand. The moment they saw your light, they planned to dim it. Not because you were weak, but because you were strong. Strong enough to trigger their deepest insecurity. The fear of being exposed. The irony is, in trying to destroy you, they revealed everything about themselves. Their fear, their emptiness, their inability to connect in a real way. And now, you rise from the pieces they left behind, not with bitterness, but with clarity. What they tried to break wasn't meant to be broken. It was meant to be reborn. Because now, you don't just survive, you see. And that vision, that self-awareness, is something no narcissist can ever steal. One of the most twisted and confusing tactics narcissists use is rewriting the story after they've hurt you. It's not enough that they broke you, lied to you, betrayed your trust, and left you emotionally bleeding. They go one step further. They take your pain and turn it into their own. They step out of the role of the abuser and into the role of the victim, and they do it so convincingly that you begin to doubt your own memory. Suddenly, the tears you cried were manipulative. The boundaries you tried to set were controlling. The silence you used to protect your peace is twisted into emotional abuse. And what's worse, to outsiders, people who didn't see the full story, they might actually seem believable. Because narcissists are master storytellers. They know how to spin their version of events in a way that protects their image and paints them as the wounded, misunderstood soul who only wanted love. They'll say things like, "I gave everything and got nothing in return," or "I tried so hard, but nothing was ever good enough for them." Meanwhile, they are talking about the very person they emotionally drained, gaslit, and manipulated into silence. That person is you, and you know the truth. But the more you try to explain it, the more twisted it becomes. That's the power of narrative control. Narcissists know that whoever tells the story first often gets believed. So they move quickly. Sometimes even before the relationship is fully over, they are already planting seeds, subtly blaming you to mutual friends, playing the sad, confused partner who doesn't know what went wrong. And if you react with anger or pain, they use it as proof that you were the unstable one all along. See, they say, look how emotional they get. I was the one being abused. They weaponize your human reaction, your heartbreak, your confusion, your tears, and they use it to validate their lie. This is not an accident. It's a tactic. Narcissists are highly invested in their image. Being seen as wrong, abusive, or cruel threatens the false identity they live behind. So they scramble to control the narrative, and they do it without guilt, because in their mind, they are the victim. That's the disturbing part. They genuinely believe their own twisted version. It's called cognitive distortion, when someone warps reality to protect their ego. And narcissists live inside that distortion every day. They can't tolerate the discomfort of being wrong, so they build an entire mental world where they were always right, always loving, always misunderstood. And in that world, you become the problem. This is why it hurts so deeply. Not just because they betrayed you, but because after all the damage, they act like you're the one who caused it. You're left standing in the ruins of the relationship, carrying the weight of what they did, while they walk away clean and even pitted. It can feel like a nightmare. You want to scream the truth, but no one's listening. Or worse, the people who do hear you say things like, well, there's two sides to every story. But you know better. You live the story. You remember the nights you cried alone, the gaslighting, the dismissiveness, the constant walking on eggshells. You know how many times you tried to communicate, to reconnect, to forgive, and how each attempt was either twisted or ignored. But in their story, those attempts don't exist. They're erased. Or worse, they're reframed as weakness, desperation, or even emotional manipulation. This rewriting of reality isn't just about them escaping blame. It's about keeping you disempowered. As long as you're questioning yourself, trying to defend yourself, trying to prove what really happened, they still have control over your mind. That's the goal. Narcissists don't need to be physically present to manipulate you. They live in your head through the confusion they leave behind. That's why the healing process can be so long and painful. Because it's not just about getting over the relationship. It's about reclaiming your story. It's about remembering what actually happened and believing your own experience again. You have to push past the fog they left you in. You have to silence the echo of their voice saying, you're the problem. You have to trust that your pain was real, that your instincts were right, and that their narrative is a lie crafted out of fear and ego. And here's something important to remember. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to gather witnesses, screenshots, or testimonies to justify how deeply you were hurt. The truth doesn't stop being the truth just because they refuse to tell it. You lived it. You know what they said behind closed doors. You remember the look in their eyes when they knew they hurt you and didn't care. You carry that truth in your body, and even if no one else believes you, your soul does. And that's enough. Over time, people begin to see through the narcissist's version of the story. Because while they can control the narrative for a while, they can't maintain it forever. Their patterns repeat. The mask slips. Their next victim starts to ask the same questions you once asked. And slowly, the image they worked so hard to protect begins to crack. That's not your job, though. Your job is to heal. To release the need for justice and focus instead on your own peace. Because you were never the abuser. You were the one trying to love someone who used your love as a mirror for their ego. And that's not shameful. That's brave. That's beautiful. But now, it's time to choose yourself. Yes, they rewrote the story to be the victim. But the truth always outlives the lie. And your truth, your heart, your voice, it deserves to be heard. Even if only by you. To most people, an apology is simple. It's a bridge between hurt and healing. It means, I see what I did. I own it. I care about the impact. But for a narcissist, saying sorry is like pulling a thread from a tightly woven illusion. And if that thread unravels, their entire false self begins to fall apart. Narcissists don't just refuse to apologize because they are rude or stubborn. They refuse because apologizing threatens the story they tell themselves, the one where they are always right, always good, always misunderstood. In their inner world, fault equals failure, and failure equals shame. And narcissists are terrified of shame. So instead of confronting it, they build a false identity to avoid it. A mask of superiority, charm, and control. Behind that mask is someone deeply fragile, often created from years of inner emptiness or trauma. But rather than face that wound, they protect it at all costs. And the cost is honesty. The cost is empathy. The cost is the ability to say, I was wrong. Because to do that, they would have to admit the mask isn't real. And for a narcissist, that's unthinkable. When they hurt you, they often know what they did. Deep down, they feel the tension, the shift in energy, the silence in your voice. But instead of reflecting on their actions, they double down. They twist it. They blame you. They make it about your reaction, not their behavior. They do this because they must protect the image. Apologizing would mean saying, I'm not perfect. I made a mistake. I caused pain. But that level of honesty feels like death to a narcissist's ego. So rather than admit guilt, they rewrite reality. You become the problem. The one who took it the wrong way. The one who always makes a big deal out of nothing. They speak with calmness while you drown in emotional turmoil. And when you ask for accountability, they act confused, detached, even offended. This isn't emotional maturity. It's emotional self-preservation at your expense. You see, the narcissist's world isn't built on truth. It's built on image. And that image must remain untouched. Admitting fault would pop the bubble they live in. So they avoid it with everything they have. Even when they seem to say sorry. Pay close attention. Is it truly an apology? Or just damage control? Is it, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or I didn't mean it like that. Followed by excuses and justifications? Real apologies require self-awareness. They require empathy. And they require vulnerability. But narcissists fear all three. Vulnerability reminds them they are human, not untouchable. Empathy forces them to feel someone else's pain. Self-awareness might lead them to confront who they really are. And they've spent their entire life running from that truth. So instead of growth, they choose denial. Instead of repair, they choose distance. And in doing so, they leave behind a trail of broken people wondering why the person who caused the damage feels no need to make it right. But here's what you must understand. Their lack of apology is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their fear. It's not because your pain wasn't real. It's because their ego couldn't survive admitting they caused it. You deserved healing words. You deserved a moment of truth, of softness, of real remorse. But narcissists can't give what they've buried. Their sorry would require them to be someone they've never allowed themselves to become. So instead, they choose silence, avoidance, or even false apologies that still place the blame on you. They walk away with their image intact while you're left holding the shattered pieces of what they broke. But don't be fooled. Behind that polished mask is a person who lacks the courage to face themselves. And that's not power. It's fear in disguise. You, on the other hand, can say sorry. You can reflect. You can grow. That makes you strong, not soft. It means you're not afraid of the truth, even when it hurts. And that's why you're here, healing, learning, reclaiming your story. The narcissist may never apologize, because doing so would shatter the illusion they hide behind. But you don't need their apology to set yourself free. You don't need them to validate your experience, because their refusal to own up says far more about them than it ever could about you. You already carry the truth, and that truth is what will carry you forward, out of the confusion, out of the pain, and into your power. There's a reason narcissists go silent when you need them to speak. It's not forgetfulness. It's not shyness. It's not needing space. It's war. A silent, psychological or designed to weigh you down from the inside out. Silence isn't just an absence of words. It's a deliberate message. It tells you, you don't matter. Your pain is irrelevant. Your confusion is your own fault. But the cruelty of it lies in how subtle it is. The narcissist doesn't slam the door. They simply vanish from a conversation. They ignore the text. They read your desperate messages but never reply. They sit across the room, arms crossed, stone-faced, while you try to explain, cry, reason, beg, and nothing. Just a wall of silence that hits harder than any insult could. This silence creates a trap. At first, you think maybe they are hurt. Maybe you went too far. Maybe they just need time. But days pass. Then weeks. Still no explanation. Still no comfort. And that's when it begins. The spiral. You replay every interaction. Every word you said. Every tone you used. You search for where you went wrong, unaware that the entire purpose of their silence is to make you feel exactly that, wrong. They want you off balance. Anxious. Desperate. Because a desperate heart is an easy heart to manipulate. Narcissists use silence as a tool of control. It keeps you hungry for their validation, and it forces you to self-soothe with fantasies of who they used to be. The charming version, the one who smiled, loved, listened. You don't want closure anymore. You want the illusion back. And so, you stay. You send one more message. One more "Are you okay?" One more apology, even if you did nothing wrong. And they love it. Not because they enjoy your pain directly, but because your pain proves their power. They can trigger you without lifting a finger. They can make you feel invisible and worthless, and you'll still chase them. What's worse is how this silence looks from the outside. To others, it doesn't seem like abuse. There's no shouting, no fighting, no drama. Just distance. The narcissist will tell mutual friends, "I just needed space. They were overwhelming me." And suddenly, they are not the one abandoning you. They are the calm, mature one taking a step back. Meanwhile, you're losing sleep. Your appetite is gone. Your thoughts race. And your self-esteem is unraveling thread by thread. All while they post like nothing happened, live like nothing happened, and sleep like nothing happened. This tactic is especially cruel to the empathetic. If you're someone who grew up trying to keep the peace, who learned to fix relationships by being extra kind, extra understanding, you're the perfect target. Your empathy becomes your leash. Narcissists don't just know this, they rely on it. They know you'll break the silence first. They know you'll send that message, ask for clarity, try to reconnect. And when you do, the cycle resets. They might respond with cold indifference, or they might reward you with a breadcrumb of warmth, just enough to keep you hoping. Either way, the message is clear. They're in control. You are not. But here's the truth that breaks the spell. Their silence is not a reflection of your worth. It's not a mirror of your mistakes. It's a mask they wear to avoid responsibility, to manipulate without being seen as manipulative. They don't want resolution. They want confusion. They don't want truth. They want dominance. And when you stop responding, when you stop chasing, when you stop explaining yourself to someone who already decided to misunderstand you, something shifts. Their power starts to fade. Because the only way silence works is if it hurts you. Once it doesn't, they lose their grip. And so, if you're caught in that space right now, the space between the wound and the apology that will never come, know this: you are not broken. You are awakening. You are learning the language of narcissistic abuse. And in doing so, you are unlearning the lies they fed you. Lies that said, you're too much, you're not enough, you're the problem. You are none of those things. You are simply someone who was kind to the wrong person too many times. Let their silence say what it needs to. But don't let it write your story. You don't need their closure to find your peace. You don't need their voice to hear your truth. You are allowed to walk away, even without the final chapter they refuse to give. Because silence might be their weapon, but your awareness is your shield. And once you see it for what it is, it can no longer harm you. Not the way it used to. One of the most insidious tactics a narcissist uses is making you question your own reality. You go through something painful, something that cuts you deep, and right when you're trying to process it, trying to heal from it, they act like everything is fine. They speak to you like nothing ever happened. They smile, joke, carry on as usual, and the worst part is, they are calm. While your world is spinning, they act like it's a sunny day. This is not forgetfulness. It's not confusion. It's psychological warfare. Narcissists know exactly what they've done. They know the damage they caused. But instead of acknowledging it, they pretend it never happened. This performance is strategic. It's designed to mess with your head. Because when someone hurts you deeply but then behaves like everything is normal, a part of you starts to doubt yourself. You start wondering, am I overreacting? Maybe I misunderstood. Was I too sensitive? This is the beginning of the trap, the self-doubt that grows in silence. This is gaslighting at its finest, and narcissists are masters of it. They want you to minimize your pain. They want you to doubt your instincts. They want you to believe that your feelings are unreliable, that your memory is flawed, and that maybe, just maybe, you made it all up. This is how they shift the power dynamic. They slowly make themselves the authority on what's real. You begin to wait for their validation to confirm your truth. You look to them to tell you whether what you felt was justified. And when they offer none, when they look at you like you're dramatic or difficult, it chips away at your confidence. That's the goal. The more you doubt yourself, the more you depend on them to tell you how to feel. It's a cruel game of emotional control. Even when the abuse is obvious, even when the words were sharp, or the betrayal undeniable, the narcissist will keep their cool. They'll show no remorse, no guilt, no hesitation. And that calm, emotionless demeanor, it sends a silent message. If I'm not upset, then you shouldn't be either. This reversal of roles is subtle but powerful. Suddenly, you're the only one crying. You're the only one hurt. And you begin to feel foolish for feeling so deeply. But here's the truth. Your emotions are not the problem. Their denial is. Their silence is. Their ability to erase your pain with a straight face is the real manipulation. They don't need to scream or shout to destroy you. All they have to do is act like nothing happened. That alone makes you feel like you're losing your mind. And once you begin to lose your grip on reality, once you start rewriting your memories to match their version of events, they've won. That's when the control tightens. That's when you stay longer than you should, apologize for things that weren't your fault, and question whether you're worthy of love at all. Because if someone can hurt you so deeply and still act like you're the problem, it rewires how you see yourself. But you must remember, this is not love. This is manipulation. Healthy people don't leave others confused and doubting their worth. Healthy people don't walk away from harm like it never happened. A person who truly cares will take accountability. They will see your pain, sit with it, and seek to repair the damage. A narcissist, on the other hand, will look you in the eyes after breaking you and say, "What are you talking about?" That moment, right there, is where the illusion begins. And unless you recognize it, you can live in that illusion for years. Narcissists are not interested in healing. They are not interested in growth. They are interested in control. The act of gaslighting you, of pretending everything is okay when it's not, isn't just about escaping accountability. It's about controlling your perception. If they can control how you remember things, they control how you respond. And if they control your response, they control your reality. This is how narcissists keep their power without lifting a finger. They confuse you into submission. They turn your clarity into fog. They twist your truth into fiction. But here's what they fear the most, your awakening. The moment you say, "No, I know what I felt. I trust what I saw. I believe my memory." That's the day their power starts to crack. Because narcissists thrive in confusion, but they shrink in clarity. They need you to stay disoriented, always doubting yourself, always chasing their version of events. But once you anchor yourself in truth, once you stop needing their validation, they lose control. That's why they act like nothing happened. That's why they try so hard to normalize the abnormal. Because if you ever realized how deeply they hurt you, and how coldly they walked away, you'd never let them near your soul again. So no, you're not overreacting. You're not too sensitive. You're not making it up. You were harmed. You were manipulated. And your pain is valid, even if the person who caused it refuses to admit it. Especially then. Trust your memory. Trust your emotions. Trust the part of you that knows something was wrong, even if they pretend it wasn't. Because that voice inside you, that instinct, that's the truth. And it's stronger than their silence. There comes a moment, often quiet, often painful, when the mask slips. Not for everyone, but for you. You felt it in your chest, in the silence between their words, in the way your body tensed before your mind even caught up. That moment when something invisible cracked, while the world still laughed with them, trusted them, even praised them. You started to see, not just what they did, but who they were beneath it all. This is not ordinary intuition. It's not just gut instinct or logic. This is the awakening of the chosen one. You were never meant to be like everyone else. That's why the narcissist targeted you. You carry light, empathy, deep sensitivity, and that light exposes their shadows. They hate it, but they are drawn to it. They want to control it, but they can't. You saw through the illusion. Maybe not all at once, but slowly, like fog lifting after a long night. While others excuse their behavior, they're just hurt. They didn't mean it. You noticed the pattern, the emotional withdrawals, the sudden cruelty, the fake apologies, the way they flipped the story, the way you always ended up the villain in their version of events. Something inside you refused to keep shrinking. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you chosen. The narcissist's charm is a weapon. Their manipulation is layered, rehearsed, convincing. They don't just hurt people. They shape the reality around them so that no one even sees the wound. They confuse, twist, and silence. But not you. You were the one who stopped pretending it didn't hurt. You were the one who stopped letting them define your worth. You began to trust the break in your soul, not as a sign of weakness, but as the first sign of truth. It's hard, because you still loved them. Maybe you still do. That's the curse of having a real heart. But love doesn't mean blindness. And your soul doesn't lie. The chosen one is not immune to the pain, but they are destined to rise from it. You were broken, yes, but breaking wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Narcissists fear people like you, because you don't just walk away. You awaken. You remember. You reconnect with something divine inside you that says, no more. That voice was always there. They just tried to silence it. They mocked your sensitivity, used your empathy as a leash, and made you question your own reality. But deep down, that still, strong part of you, the part they couldn't touch, was watching, waiting, and when it woke up, the game changed. People will ask why you stayed, why you let them back in, why you didn't see it sooner. But don't waste your breath explaining. They haven't walked through the fire you have. You saw the good in them, because you were looking through your own lens of goodness. That's not foolishness. That's evidence of your heart. And the fact that your heart still beats, still feels, still hopes, that's a miracle. Because narcissists don't just hurt people. They make people disappear. They raise voices, erase joy, erase truth. But not yours. Not anymore. You see the illusion now. You hear the sweet lies for what they are. Hooks, bait, traps dressed as comfort. You understand why they need to act innocent after destruction. Why they rewrite stories. Why they never say sorry. Why they choose silence instead of healing. It's not because you're not worth the truth. It's because they are terrified of it. The truth would destroy the fantasy world they built around their broken self. And you are the mirror. The chosen one becomes the thing they fear most. The person who sees and speaks the truth. Now that you've seen behind the curtain, it's hard to go back. You don't laugh at their jokes anymore. You don't shrink to fit their mood. You don't dance for crumbs of love. You've outgrown the illusion. Yes, it hurts. Awakening always does. But it's also freedom. Real, unshakable freedom. And with that freedom comes clarity, peace, and power. Power to break the cycle. Power to walk away. Power to rebuild. Power to speak for those still caught in the web. So no, you're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're not overreacting. You're awake. That shift you feel, that's your soul remembering who you were before the confusion, before the guilt, before the mask. You see it now, don't you? You were never the problem. You were the light. And in the presence of real light, faucet trembles. It has to. Let them say what they want. Let them call you bitter, or sensitive, or cold. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. Your healing is your truth. Your voice is your weapon. Your peace is your protection. And your story, it's not over. It's just beginning. Because the chosen one doesn't just survive. They rise. They speak. They remember. And above all, they never forget what they saw behind the mask. There's a chilling truth behind the narcissist's cruelty. They believe your pain belongs to them. Not in the way a loving person might carry another's burdens, but in the twisted way they feel entitled to inflict it. In their world, your suffering is not only expected, it's justified. Every tear you shed, every sleepless night you endured, every silent scream buried deep in your chest, they see it as a consequence you deserved. And that's how they walk away guilt-free. A narcissist doesn't view pain the way an empath does. Empaths feel it, carry it, and try to heal it. Narcissists weaponize it. They use it to dominate, to manipulate, and most disturbingly, to feed a wounded ego that can't survive on truth. They operate in a fragile reality built on superiority and control. And in that reality, they twist your every emotional reaction into evidence of your weakness or instability. It's all part of their internal script, where they are the misunderstood hero and you, the villain who pushed them too far. They hurt you, yes, but in their mind, you made them do it. You were too emotional, too demanding, too much. The narrative in their head goes something like this. I tried to help them, I gave them a chance, and they just didn't appreciate it. It's not just denial, it's delusion. And that delusion shields them from ever having to take responsibility. Because if they truly believed you were innocent, if they admitted to themselves that you were kind, loyal, loving, and still they broke you, then guilt would crash down on them like a tidal wave. And they are not equipped to swim in that kind of emotional depth. So instead, they flip the script. They rewrite the story where your love becomes your flaw. Your truth becomes manipulation, and your wounds become drama. You crying becomes emotional blackmail. You pulling away becomes abandonment. You setting boundaries becomes abuse. They weaponize language, memory, and your own goodness until the lines blur and you start questioning whether you were the problem all along. And still, after all this, you might see them acting like nothing happened, laughing with friends, posting happy photos, dating someone new like your world wasn't just burned to ash. This is the cruel aftermath. Because they don't just move on. They rewrite history to suit their ego. And the new version, it's one where you were always the unstable one, the jealous one, the one who couldn't handle their greatness. It's deeply painful, but the truth is, a narcissist can't survive emotionally if they allow themselves to feel guilt. Guilt would crack the mirror they've built around their false self. So instead of acknowledging it, they discard it. And along with it, they discard you. Not as a person, but as a threat to their delusion. In their mind, they had to hurt you. You pushed them. You forced their hand. And now, they are just protecting their peace. But let's be clear. There's nothing peaceful about the way they leave. Their silence is deafening. Their lack of closure is intentional. Their need to appear unbothered while you break inside is calculated. Because if you suffer while they look calm, it proves to the world that you were the chaos. It's not just emotional abuse. It's image management. They protect their mask at the cost of your reality. And still, they feel entitled to your pain. It's not that they don't know they hurt you. They do. But they tell themselves they had every right. That you needed to be humbled. That you had it coming. And when you finally break, when you collapse into grief or rage or self-doubt, they don't feel guilty. They feel validated. This is why closure rarely comes from them. They can't give you an apology, not a real one. Because to apologize means to admit they were wrong. And if they were wrong, then they are not the superior, righteous, flawless being they've convinced themselves they are. Their entire personality is built on a lie, and your pain threatens to expose it. So instead, they turn their back. They disappear. They act like you were the storm, and they're just trying to rebuild their life in the aftermath. But you know better. Your soul knows better. You were there. You felt the manipulation, the slow unraveling, the way they twisted love into power and vulnerability into weakness. Narcissists operate in the shadows of confusion. They weave a reality where nothing feels solid, where you're constantly questioning your thoughts, your worth, your memories. It's all part of the trap. They keep you stuck in cycles of explaining yourself, of begging for clarity, of apologizing for emotions they triggered, just so they never have to face the truth about what they are. But something happens the moment you begin to awaken. Something shifts, and they feel it, long before you even fully understand it yourself. Your energy changes. Your spirit starts pulling away from the illusion, and that terrifies them more than anything. Because narcissists don't fear being alone. They fear losing control. They fear being seen. Not the version they've carefully constructed for the world, but the raw truth underneath, the frightened, angry, empty shell that manipulates to survive. They can sense when you start to see through the mask, and they know it means the game is ending. Your awakening doesn't come all at once. It's slow, painful, subtle, but real. Maybe it starts with a sentence that used to shatter you. Now it just feels flat. Maybe their silence no longer triggers anxiety but peace. Maybe, for the first time, you look at them and realize there's nothing left to prove. You are not crazy. You were never too much. You were never broken. You were simply under a spell. A spell designed to keep you questioning your reality while they fed off your confusion. But now, you're starting to remember who you were before they rewrote your story. And that's the moment they panic. Because the power they held was never truly theirs. It was borrowed from your compassion, your empathy, your willingness to give the benefit of the doubt over and over again. They used your kindness as a leash. But once you start to see clearly, once you start pulling away, the leash slips through their fingers. Your awakening is not just about leaving the relationship, or going no contact, or standing up for yourself. Those are steps, but the real awakening happens inside. It's when your soul stands up. It's when you stop seeking closure from the person who broke you. When you stop begging for truth from the one who thrives on distortion. When you stop letting your peace depend on their validation. That kind of awakening, it burns, it cleanses, it transforms you. And narcissists cannot handle that light. Because when you awaken, you no longer serve as their mirror. You were never just a partner, a friend, a sibling, a child. You were the stage where their false self came to life. You reflected back the version of themselves they wanted to believe in. And when you wake up, that stage collapses. You no longer applaud their performance. You see the strings. You hear the lies. You recognize the manipulation not as love, but control. And worst of all, you're no longer afraid to walk away from it. You stop needing them to explain. You stop needing the apology they'll never give. You stop needing them. Period. They fear that. They fear your detachment. Because your awakening breaks the contract they never said out loud, but always expected you to uphold. I hurt you, and you'll keep taking it. I lie, and you'll keep trusting. I abandon, and you'll keep chasing. But now, you do none of that. You choose yourself. You choose peace. You choose truth. You choose healing, even if it's lonely, even if it's messy, even if it means walking into the unknown with nothing but your spirit to guide you. And they hate that, because if you can rise, it proves they were never as powerful as they believed. It proves they were never in control of your soul, just your confusion. And that kind of loss is unbearable for them. Sometimes, it takes being shattered to see what we're really made of. When a narcissist breaks you, it feels like your world has ended. The person you trusted, loved, maybe even built your life around, ripped your soul apart without flinching. The pain is personal. The silence is brutal. And the confusion, it feels like a fog you'll never escape. But here's what they didn't expect. You weren't built to break down. You were designed to break free. This betrayal, it wasn't the end of you. It was the beginning of something sacred, something untouchable. At first, you probably didn't see it that way. Of course not. All you could feel was the sting of the lies, the betrayal, the twisted way they made you feel like you were the problem. You questioned your worth, your sanity, your memories. That's what narcissists do best. They leave you drowning in your own thoughts, hoping you'll never realize that they were the storm. But in that deep darkness, something inside you flickered. A quiet knowing, a resistance. That tiny spark inside your chest whispering, "You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're waking up." The truth is, narcissists don't accidentally hurt people. They target the light. Your empathy, your love, your softness, your willingness to forgive, to understand, to go the extra mile. They saw all of it. And they hated it. Not because it made you weak, but because it made you powerful. They can't feel what you feel. They can't love the way you do. So, instead of honoring your heart, they try to control it, break it, dismantle it. Because if they could dim your light, they wouldn't have to face their own darkness. But here's the plot twist they didn't count on. When you hit rock bottom, you didn't stay there. You began to rise. Not instantly. No, it was slow, painful. You cried. You blamed yourself. You wanted answers, closure, apologies that never came. But eventually, the fog started to lift. You started connecting dots. Patterns emerged. You began to see clearly, not just what they did, but who you truly are underneath all the pain. You saw how they fed off your self-doubt, how they twisted your kindness into a weakness, how they wore a mask to mirror your soul, only to tear it down later. And that realization, that was your awakening. You weren't meant to carry the shame. You weren't born to stay broken. You were chosen to learn, to rise, to transform. You were chosen to alchemize pain into power, confusion into clarity, and heartbreak into healing. That betrayal cracked the shell that kept you small. Now, you don't just see the narcissist for who they are. You see yourself for who you've always been. Strong, away, divine. They tried to silence your voice. Now, you speak with more power than ever. They tried to shame your heart. Now, you wear it with pride. They tried to make you forget who you are. But the betrayal reminded you. And the most powerful thing, you no longer need their apology. You no longer crave their validation. That cord, emotional, spiritual, energetic, has been severed.